This is Chris Ball, an extraordinary angler. For the past 60 years, he's been catching carp off the top on floating bait. In March of this year, a time when fish are rarely caught in this way, he achieved a remarkable capture. I'll let him tell you the story.
Well, here we are. The longest day has gone. We're in nearly midsummer now. Everything's beautifully grown up. It's all fish are darting about the place, all over the place. Spawning's finished, and this whole general area, in fact, the lake as such, was such a drab place 3 months ago. It was in the middle of March when I looked in this area, shallow, and the previous year I'd seen some carp come into this area. The daylight hours are getting longer. There's a tiny bit more warmth, and I managed to catch a couple to just under 20 pound, which was fantastic in March. So happened this year, so in the middle of March I looked yet again in here, and there were big dark shapes moving around. The spot just along the bank here, I threw some chum mixer in by hand, they were that close, and they started. And though the water was coloured, I couldn't really see what kind of, they were just big dark shapes. There had to be one or two good ones there. So raced back for the tackle, got everything sorted, free lining, single piece of mixer, and flicked it out. Within a minute I had a fish come up and investigate, came so close, and then another one swirled at it, that kind of thing, all within 5 minutes. And then suddenly, as I was fishing out just a little bit further, I just noticed to the left, close to the bank, a couple of fish come along. I quickly reeled back to intercept. The hook bait was right in position. First one went straight under it. Second one stopped. You often get, especially in coloured water, you might not see the fish. You'll suddenly get these two white flashes come out as he puts on the brakes. Pectoral fins open up. It stopped. Big snout came up. Whoomph! He's at it. So spectacular battle in and around in front of me. Nothing too, no fireworks as such, but very, very heavy all the way around. Tried to bundle it in the net 2 or 3 times, didn't work. You know, how many times does that happen? And the hook pulls. But all that was going through my mind. Eventually I got it into the net. I knew it was a good one. I just lifted the net. I knew it was a half decent one. So I've got a spring bow landing net, stuck the handles, got a metal point on the end into the bank, and darted back to the car, get my unhooking mat and what have you. There's a fella there who came back with me, and I brought the fish out and put it on the mat, and he said, "Well, that's 30 pounds," and I went, "Blimey!" When I looked at it, it certainly was, and I was grateful to him. As a good chap, helped me with photos and everything, and there it was, 33 pound 4 ounces. So I was thrilled. I noticed I sat for, I don't know, an hour, and there was the odd fish around, but I wasn't keen to cast. But I noticed mixer had drifted to the left, further down the sort of channel, and I noticed some fish were taken there, and I made a mental note of that. Anyway, I packed up, went home, and a fitful night's sleep. Next day I said to the wife, "I've got to go back. Got to go back." So lunchtime went back, came in there, so there was a fella in the spot where I was the day before. Well, I walked further along the bank where I'd seen these fish as I'd left the day before, and sure enough there they were. And put bait out, and one took, then another one, put a bit more bait out, and it's that wonderful situation that I called World War III. And they were all over the place. Went back for the tackle, met a fella I knew on the way back who said, "Can I come with you, Chris? I've got a camera." I thought, well, that'd be useful, you know, if I did get one, take some pictures. And he stood about, I don't know, 10 foot behind me. It was a difficult spot to fish. And anyway, after several near misses, all within 5 or 6 minutes, suddenly it's gone. And unlike the one the day before, this one roared off to the left, and I thought it was going to get stuck further down the bank, but I managed to shift it and it moved out in front. Big battle again in front. The vortexes were getting larger and larger, and eventually netted it. And we got everything sorted, and I went down for the fish. brought it back up to the unhooking mat, and the second time in 2 days, somebody with me has said, not £30. My friend said, well, that's £35. And when I looked, it was a bigger fish. When we put it on the scales, it was 36.5 pounds, 36.8. This had dimensions of, from nose to the fork of tail, of 35 inches. So to the edge of the tail, end of the tail, 3 foot fish with a girth of 28 inches. And to catch two, mid-30s on consecutive afternoons in the middle of March is something that certainly I've never done before. And in fact, when I mentioned it to a pal a little bit later on, he said, I'm not sure if anybody's done that, but they probably have. But for me, a real high spot, and of course, caught in adverse conditions, and two cracking fish. Well, amazing. After yesterday's 33, 17th of March now, on a single piece of mixer right under the rod tip, 36.8. How about that? Wow, what a fish. And this is the rod I used to capture those two big commons. It's a Goddess fibreglass rod, yes, fibreglass, from the mid-60s, manufactured round about 63, 65, and made by the DAM company of West Germany. This is some of the first reliable fibreglass to come into the UK, and specialist tackle shops at the time sold these in blank form, or they made up rods. And Dodson Edmonton was one of these shops, sadly no longer around. And Phil Hilton, no relation to Jack Hilton, was a big fish angler from the 50s, 60s and 70s. He purchased this. He had the handle already done, finished the rest of the rod, and he used it extensively for many years. Big carp, big pike, all been landed on this rod. And he died over 20 years ago now, and I had a note from his widow. And I was most touched to find that Phil had actually requested that I, have this rod be passed over to me, so I bequeathed it, if you like. And I went to see her, we had a cup of tea, and she gave me the rod. I'd seen it, donkey's years before, and admired it. And anyway, that was it. And I passed it, and it was in my collection for quite a while. And before, I don't know, autumn last year, I looked at it, I thought, I'm going to start using that. So I had the handle redone by a rod finisher, and just minimal stuff done to bring it back to shape. And went out and used it, and some of the very first, I caught a couple before the two big fish, but both those big commons were caught on this fantastic Goddess fibreglass rod.
Well done, Chris. 2 30-pound carp caught on floating bait. A perfect celebration of your 60 years catching carp off the top.